is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York calling from Zoom again, and this time we are here with Kurdt of the Almighty Metal Church. It is great to be able to talk with you. Thanks for being here today, man.
Hey, my pleasure, man. Thanks for having me.
Anytime, man, anytime. It's so awesome to have you here. Congregation of Annihilation is an absolutely kick-ass album. I can't wait for the
Thanks.
rest of the world to hear it. For people who haven't heard the full-length album yet, though, do you feel like the first single that we got so far, Pick a God and Pray, is a good representation of this whole album in a way, or is that just scratching
Absolutely.
the surface of what's to come?
No, absolutely, definitely. This album is definitely more aggressive and more back to our thrash roots. Definitely.
Mhm. Was there sort of like a preconceived vision of what you wanted? This was that sort of like a preconceived vision in a way, given the circumstances and everything, or was this kind
Yeah,
of like a
no, I had written an album, and Mike and I had just started writing and working on a new album, and so I wrote a new album, and Mike and I started the process of collaborating, and then obviously he passed away. Then there was a few months of trying to decide if I even wanted to continue. Um, but then when we decided to continue, it was a kind of a step-by-step process. So when things started working with Mark, there was definitely much more aggressiveness in his vocals and his delivery that and that seemed like a good way to go. I didn't want a mic clone. I didn't want to just if we were going to continue, I wanted to kind of have it be another chapter, something a little bit different, just a new phase, a new old phase, I guess you could say. So when that started happening, when things worked out with Mark, it was like, okay, that's definitely making the trajectory that we're going.
Mhm.
So a good batch of the songs that I wrote with Mike in mind fell by the wayside, and I did write part of the album was brand new material to fit with our new direction.
Being that Mark played with Ross the Boss and Let Us Pray and stuff, does that maybe bring like a new side to Metal Church in a way?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he definitely brings his own thing to it, but he's also very much honors the past and our sound and what Metal Church musically is all about.
Mhm. Being that this is clearly like a new beginning for Metal Church, and again, as a fan, thank you for continuing to go on after everything you had to go
Oh, cool.
through. Is there any
Yeah.
though, like maybe continuation from elements that we heard from Damned If You Do in a way? Is this technically like the follow up in a way, or are you kind of like really just approaching this with a clean slate?
Kind of approaching it with a clean slate, kind of. I mean, there's certainly elements in it because when I write metal music, it sounds like me, and so there is those elements. And for me, even if it is more aggressive and thrashy, then that's great. That's fine, but it's got to be melodic.
Of course. When you're
Yeah.
when you're sitting there with your, do you come up with guitar ideas better when you are in the company of your fellow bandmates, or isolation being such a great fuel for creativity, you prefer to sort of be more alone in your own element?
For me, it is. Yeah, I'm really a hermit, and a studio rat. So yeah, I wish, because I do miss the days where you'd have to get together and work up things, but the way things are now, you can function being all over the place.
Yeah, you know,
So
I'm waiting for there to be a band where like they have a member on every continent or something like that, and
right. Oh, I'm sure they're out there. I'm sure they're there. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that'll be
Yeah.
that'll be quite the fun aspect. I wanted to ask this right now because next year is gonna mark 40 years since the debut of Metal Church's first album, and with
Yeah.
how much you had to go through paying tribute to your two late singers and having this new beginning representing that the band goes on and continues, could there be some sort of celebration for Metal Church next year, like a 40-year anniversary tour?
I don't know about the tour or anything, but there's definitely some possibilities. I have to be very careful. There is definitely going to be some surprises as far as recordings are concerned.
Okay. Oh, I can't wait to hear that.
Yeah, there's
Is
going to be some cool stuff going on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
any maybe if I could take a guess, because like even though that's the debut album, maybe like a reinvention of the Hitman and Four Hymns and maybe Red Skies demos or something like that.
Well, Red Sky is a good one. Yeah. Wow. Maybe. No.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I won't say anymore. I don't want to get anyone in trouble.
Well, yeah. No, it's just I don't want to say too much because so much of that stuff has to be sorted out. But we're working on that kind of stuff.
Awesome. I
Yeah.
can't wait to hear what you
Yeah.
guys do. I also wanted to talk a little bit about some other anniversaries, is because this year also marks 30 years of Hanging in the Balance. So I kind of wanted to go with some memories of what the making of that album was like, because when you went from, I feel like that, going from Metal Church to The Dark to Blessing in Disguise to The Human Factor, I feel like Hanging in the Balance did have like a lot of evolution demonstrated. So what was the sort of idea behind the making of that album?
Well, that album was a real tough time for the band because at that point, grunge had taken over. So metal was not in favor at that point. We had some serious bad management at that point too. So that was a struggle, and also then, things like the production was really weird. Then we saw the cover and we're like, and then things like that it was tough. We all had, and it was dark because we all kind of knew this industry had changed. The industry had changed and we were struggling with the business side of the music biz, which always kills music
Yeah.
unless you have that stuff handled. So even though there's some great material on that record, that's a real tough record for us because of all the other things that were going on around it.
Yeah, I forgot which member it was, but one of the members of Slaughter said though that it wasn't grunge that killed metal during that time period; it was the industry more or less that did it. But
Absolutely.
yeah, because
Yeah.
I never understood why a grunge was considered to be a killer of metal. Because like I know a lot of people who would listen to Alice in Chains and Soundgarden and Nirvana,
Well,
and
they were metal.
yeah,
Yeah, they were metal. They were metal. No, it's that old, which is one good thing about the new industry now. But yeah, it was the old industry going, okay, well, this is what's going on now. These guys suck. This is done. We're done with that. This is what we're going to do.
yeah,
It's like, and that's like, well, not everybody feels that way,
yeah, of
because
course,
I'll buy an Alice in Chains album and an Anthrax album, you know. So we got some new kind of new take on hard rock. Okay, great. Why does this all of a sudden have to disappear? That's the old music business,
hmm
which is I'm glad that's gone. So,
but and maybe this, I was born in '93, so I didn't really get to
mhm,
witness too much of it. But like, because at the time period, Pantera was conquering the world, death metal was at its prime, black metal was
mhm.
sort of on the rise, and Roadrunner was getting like their sort of like roster on board too with their. So is it really fair to say that just heavy metal was dead in the '90s?
I don't think so. I think again, I think he was absolutely right. Going, it wasn't the music that killed it; it was the industry. So it was just out of favor, and that means the record companies are not going to push your stuff. The press at the time aren't really going to cover it, as much. And the radio is going to come because it's all was controlled by major labels, and that was the old industry. So yeah, no, I don't think it's fair to say it was dead. It just went underground. It never went away.
Yeah,
It just was not as publicly seen.
yeah.
So I think he's absolutely right with that.
Yeah, I've always thought that Metal Church, because you do have a legacy and have inspired a lot of bands, but Metal Church is also, I've said, like, there's almost kind of like an underground charm that you have with it. Like, I feel like bands like you guys, I feel like Voivod also sort of has that vibe a little bit, where you guys are still have that
Right,
sort
right,
of underground charm in a way.
right. Yeah, we are kind of the underdogs. We are the. I mean, because we, at the beginning of the '80s when all that was starting, there was the Big Five. We were part of that, because those were all the bands we played and toured with. The Metallicas, the Anthrax, the Megadeths and Slayers, and it was us. So we were all peers and playing together. We made some decisions that kind of made us fall, off the radar of that a bit. So, and I've never been bitter about that. Those are things we had to do at the time. But yeah, so being a part of that, yeah, we've always kind of been, yeah, we're the underground band. We're kind of just below that mark. We're the mid-level kind of thing. It's like us and Overkill and Exodus and some of those kind of bands too.
Yeah,
So
I just love that about like the sort of thrash sound in a way, even if it's louder than life, but in a way, but it just has such like a dirty, raw underground energy to it.
which is cool, which is what I like. I mean, back when I was a kid, and Kiss was my favorite band before they got popular. When they were, during the first couple albums, but then when they broke and became really popular and huge and everything, I didn't like them anymore.
Yeah,
So, because it wasn't any fun, it's like everybody likes them now. Yeah, fuck those guys, you know.
yeah, fair enough. That I never understood that mind frame either, but it is common.
But it's just kind of, it's just kind of how it works. Like, oh, they're no fun anymore because they were our band. They were, they were our band that, was really cool and wild and crazy that nobody knew about.
Mm,
Then they get really popular and now they're like, all right, no, we're done. So I totally get that. It makes no sense, but I totally get that, you
Fair
know.
enough. This year also marks 10 years of Generation Nothing, and I don't feel like that record doesn't get talked about as much. I feel like that record has, it's just as classic of a sound as what we would hear off of Blessing in Disguise or The Dark in a way. So, what was the sort of mindset behind Generation Nothing, and how did that evolve, later, leading up into Congregation of Annihilation?
Well, I think it was just part of the thing because we had kind of went on hiatus for a while because we were struggling with business stuff, and when we came back, we wanted something, something with a little hit a little bit harder, and I think it's hard to say. I don't think there was a real conscious. I don't we really overthought it too much. That is just kind of where we were at that time. I think there was more of a vibe of, okay, let's do this. Regardless of all the other stuff that happens, let's do this.
Yeah,
And that was kind of kind of where we were at. Again, not overthinking it too much.
yeah,
I think it was just more of we came back with an attitude. You know,
yeah.
so I think that's about the only way I can put it.
Yeah, you're going from Present Wasteland to Generation Nothing. There was definitely a vengeance in that.
Yeah,
Yep. When it
yeah.
comes when it comes to getting the inspiration or the creative energy to write music, and you pick up your guitar and go into it, do you does the inspiration sort of come out of nowhere for you in a way? Like, does inspiration strike when you least expect it, or do you almost seek out the inspiration? Do you have like a usual place you go to cultivate ideas?
I think it's just it's when I sit, if I'll be sitting here in front of the computer taking care of business or whatever, I have a guitar handy and I'll just start playing. It's like, and if I get into like, okay, it's time, start putting together a record, I'll just start playing and just start letting stuff go. And it takes me a day or two sometimes to kind of get in the flow, write a bunch of stuff. No, that's all garbage, delete, and it just kind of get things going. So it's more of just getting, for me, getting in the mindset of, okay, time to start writing some music, and that's my favorite thing in the world to do. So I love doing it.
Ha-
So it's just, there's nothing real, no formulaic about it. I just start doing it. Yeah.
Being and having the rhythmic aspect of your guitar playing, because the riffs and the way that you able to carry the rhythm, like, is there, I mean, it's a very like sort of brain pricky, but like, is there a theoretical aspect behind it in a way? You mentioned you don't think about it too much, but like, are you like thinking in key, or are you thinking in tempo in a way when laying down the rhythm aspects of your band?
When I start, it just whatever comes out, and then if that'll direct the path. So, and me, I'm a rhythm guitar player by choice. I just prefer the riff as opposed to the leads. So it's just it just starts happening. I guess I'm very lucky and blessed in the sense that I don't have to think about it too much. If I grab a guitar and start just noodling around, all of a sudden stuff starts happening. And if I'm in the mindset of a metal church record, then the metal stuff will start coming out. Or if it's a Presto Ballet record, then the proggy stuff will start coming out. So it's more of just getting myself into that mode because again, it's what I love to do. So I love to see what I can come up with, and I love to challenge myself with music too. So try things I've never tried before. So
Is the music almost in a way reflective of like an emotion that you were feeling at that time? Because with Congregation of Annihilation, one thing I find so astonishing about it is really just I feel the energy and the emotion of you guys pushing through and carrying on and paying tribute to your friend and bandmate. So like, is everything we hear almost reflective of something we're feeling internally in a way?
I think that we couldn't avoid it, and I think when Mark came to the picture and that kind of formulated our new trajectory, I think it just kind of was very natural. We wanted, and that's why the whole aggressive stuff as the album was developing, everybody was definitely on board with that because it's like, yeah, that's kind of how we're feeling, And again, not to overthink it, but it just kind of came out naturally that way.
Being because I also feel that you and Rick have different guitar tones in a way. The way that Rick is able to contribute solos to the album, and the way that he's able to bring his mix along with your rhythm in a way. Do both of
Yeah,
you need to kind of be in the same headspace when combining your guitar efforts together in a way? Do both of you kind of need to be feeling the same emotion, or
well, I think we both kind of do that organically, because we're kind of both coming from the same school, but like we talk about this all the time. Because like when we were kids, he'd put on an album and he'd skip right to the solos. I'd put on an album and play up to the solo and then skip to the riff. So we just kind of do that, but we play off each other. My riffs will inspire him to take his lead somewhere, and that's kind of, we just kind of fell into that kind of role naturally, and what he brings is like, just like, wow, I would have never thought of that, and doing these, just his, put his stamp on it. And that's what we do with all this stuff now, is everybody gets to put their stamp on it, you know.
Yeah, it's a very collaborative effort. And every time I like ask a band how the making of an album was, and they say, "Oh, we all collectively came and it was all mutual agreements," I don't really believe it, because if you're in a band with 5 people and you're making a dozen or so songs, there's gonna be some room for disagreement. But that has to maybe help to have different opinions, right?
I love when everybody puts their stamp on it. I will lay the foundation of the song, but Stet does his drum parts, does his thing to it. Rick does his thing to it. Steve will do his parts and make up his parts to it. And obviously Mark came in and did his thing to it. So I'll lay the foundation, but I love it when everybody else puts their stuff on it. So not everything is coming out of my head. Yeah, I could do all that, but it's much more creative and a much more of an exciting process of creativity when everybody's putting a little bit of where they're coming from into it. So it develops the song.
Yeah. And when it comes to playing live, though, because they've always said that playing live and songwriting have a completely different energy. So when you're bringing these songs together live, how different of an energy are you channeling into it? Is it almost a completely separate art?
It absolutely is. It absolutely is. Yeah. So the live application is, when we're writing songs and making records, you're thinking about applying the live application, like, okay, when we do this live, how is this going to go? You're thinking about it, but I don't let that dictate the song, but when you get to live, when we're going to find this out pretty soon, when we start rehearsals, then we're going to see how it translates, and especially with a new singer. So we're going to find out. Yeah.
I'd imagine too, with every tour you do and with every album you put out, it gets much harder to put a set list together as well when playing live, right?
Oh my God, it's horrible. Yeah. But this particular one, we're going to go back. Because with Mike, we obviously did the majority of stuff from his era. This time we're going to go back and do more of the David Wayne era stuff, because Mark's a big fan of that and he can do it real well. And we're also going to bring out a couple of 2 or 3 little hidden tracks and songs that haven't been played live forever. So
you're always
just a couple little surprises. Yeah,
you're always gonna have that one fan who wants like that deep cut from like the Red Skies or Hitman demo, like that you've never played live before either, right? So
right, it's like, well, we don't even know how to play that. We don't even know how it goes. So yeah,
yeah. But I think that's cool. I mean, I think having so many albums to the point where you're having a hard time putting a set list is almost kind of like a great
it's a blessing and a curse.
Yeah. Yep. Or a blessing in disguise, pun intended. But yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And I wanted to ask that too, because having different singers from the David era to Mike era to now, like, is it almost like you had to maybe, because a lot of people say that sometimes you adjust your guitar playing to fit your singer in a way. So did maybe with different singers coming on board, did maybe that you had to adjust some of your techniques in a way, maybe whether it would be tuning or...
Oh, no, absolutely. It wasn't necessarily techniques. It was more the songwriting direction was definitely influenced by that. And in this case with Mark, it definitely went in a much more thrashy direction. And so that was, when I realized that, when, okay, these songs that I had written for Mike, with Mike in mind, they don't really apply to where we're going now. So we need some more stuff. So yeah, it definitely influenced it big time.
Yeah. And I'd imagine with every album you learn something new about yourself too.
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. It's like, yeah. Yeah, like, wow, I played a different solo than an Ace Frehley solo at different speeds.
Yeah. How do you know when you're finished with a song?
I don't know. When I'm listening to it, you mean when it's written?
Yeah.
I guess when I'm sitting back and listening to it as we're developing the demo, then there's no gaps or no places where I go, make that face, where every part that comes along and everything and the arrangement's working and it's holding my interest and it's keeping me musically interested. Usually that's for me is how I can tell.
Great. That's a great explanation. I thought that was simple. You answer the questions the same way you write in a way. You don't overthink it, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's just like if it doesn't make me cringe any spot or go ooh or or anything like oh no that's dumb or anything like that. When I'm like oh that's cool, that's cool, that's cool, and it ends, I'm like well I guess that one's done. You know,
I'm right.
yeah.
And the final question I wanted to ask you is, there's a lot of modern day thrash bands and just a lot of modern day heavy metal bands that have cited Metal Church as an inspiration. I've met plenty of bands who, put a lot of your albums on the same level as a Master of Puppets or Countdown to Extinction or
Cool.
any classic metal album in a way. So when you hear how a younger musician or just another band has taken inspiration from Metal Church, does that actually inspire you in a way or make you look at yourself as an artist differently?
It's really strange for me because when I hear that kind of stuff, I mean that's like very very mind blowing because the things that some people say to me about the influence of what my work and what I've done is exactly what I would say to some people that I look up to. My favorite bands, the people that inspired me. So when they say that to me, it's hard for me to process that because I don't look at myself that way or feel that way about myself. But when they say it, it's really amazingly flattering and it's not lost on me. But it's really hard to process that because I don't feel like that guy, but at the same time, I'm not discounting it by any stretch, quite the opposite. So it's kind of a mind bender really, because I certainly don't want to sit around and go, oh yeah, the arrogant side of things that some people can go to. It's like for me, it's just more like, really, because I don't look at it that way. But I'm so flattered, and I just love the fact that people like what I've done. I mean, as a musician and an artist, it doesn't get any better than that. It's not gauged by how much money you make or how many record sales. It's gauged to me by how people enjoy it. You
Yeah.
know, and that's the most important thing.
When other musicians pick up on what you do and help take your ideas to the next level too, it's truly like one of the greatest
It's
blessings.
hard to process that. Yeah, that's hard to process, but great to try to process it too because it's just awesome. You know,
Definitely.
it's kind of what you started. It's kind of what you worked for when you were a kid, learning to play and setting your plans. Like I want to be a rock musician. And to have that kind of influence and have people feel that way about what you do really doesn't get any better than that.
Of course. Definitely.
Yeah.
So before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for this amazing album, and just as a metal fan, we all thank you so much for continuing on with everything
Oh,
you
thank
had to
you.
go through, and we're very excited to see you continuing to kill it. Is there just anything else
Awesome.
with Metal Church that you would like to promote with the release of Congregation of Annihilation that you're allowed to say at this time, of course?
Oh yeah, no, with this record, no, I think, everybody like you brought up the first single is definitely, a indication of what's to come. The album is definitely more aggressive and more thrashy. Um, so yeah, I mean, I think everybody will be quite happy with it. It's definitely a different sound, but not completely different. It's more harkening back to the old thrashy days. So
We look forward to that. Thank you.
there we go. I think everybody will enjoy it. Yeah.
Thank you so much, everybody. The almighty Metal Church Congregation of Annihilation. Be sure to pick that up. This is Alex from Heavy New York, and we will see you next time.
Thank you.